Hi, I'm Linda Quinlan.
I'm Ann Charles.
I'm Keith Ghostland, and this is All Things LGBTQ. We are taping on Tuesday, February 7th. We tape at Orca Media in Montpelier, Vermont, which we recognize as being unceded Indigenous land. And now that you've heard all of our usual intro, you have titillating gossip to share, I'm told.
Well, I have one there's a few interesting, but one that Stormy Daniels has come out as bisexual and is doing the gay dating show on Out TV. So that's kind of interesting.
Okay.
I know you like the gossip,
Well, every now and then, because we have to balance when Anne takes us to bizarre places.
I know. So Connecticut's first LGBTQ-centered school is to open later this year. Patricia Nicolari faced repeated harassment from her students and can only imagine what her students had gone through. In September, she is opening a private school that's designed to be an oasis for LGBTQ students. She also wants to hire like mental health counselors and different kinds of support system for the school. And the school will be surprisingly called Pride Academy. So,
I'm shocked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Last of Us star Bella Ramsey thinks it's important to depict LGBTQ love in the post-apocalyptic world. It's not like all gay people get blown up.
Well, that's encouraging.
Boyhood Collides with Masculinity is nominated. Close. Lucas DeHaant's second movie, Close, dives into adolescence. So, do you know when's the Academy Awards?
March 12th, I think.
March 12th, okay.
12th or 13th.
Okay. The NFL finds itself on thin ice, with some conservatives as the new target in the culture wars. In the run-up for the All-Star game in Florida, the league sought to put its efforts into promoting diversity. You know how well that went over in Florida. The left conservatives argue that some of these institutions discriminate against white men. We won't go there?
No.
Okay.
No.
Preacher calls gay men AIDS dispensers.
Yeah.
And the congregation cheered, as he said that. Jason Gaber said that gay people should not be allowed to breathe air. The FBI joins an investigation of violent threats against St. Louis bars and Drag Queen Story Hour. One caller threatened to blow the bar up and the people in it. The FBI also said it's investigating a children's play space in the South City. The owner got death threats while doing a drag story hour. And for Black History Month, Black lesbian Ernestine Eckstein was protesting when most gays thought protesting was crazy. She was from South Bend, Indiana, youngest of 8 children. Her real name was Ernestine Eppinger. What is known about her came from an interview with Barbara Giddings and her partner and was published in the 1966 issue of Daughters of Bilitis.
Some people say Bilitis.
Bilitis? Mm-hmm. You can Google the entire interview on Google, and here's a picture of her.
That was almost this week's trivia question.
Ah, see, I might have gotten it then.
Yeah.
Although next week you could do it. Arkansas House okays anti-trans bathroom bill. And Charles Silverstein dies at 83. He was known for making presentations before the American Psychiatric Board in 1968, which led to the removal of homosexuality as a mental illness. He also published the book of The Joy of Gay Sex, and here is his picture.
I think I still have a copy of that. It's on the bottom shelf.
Yeah. When did that come out? I have no idea. 80s? After
Our bodies
the women, Our
ourselves.
Bodies Ourselves,
Yeah.
yeah. Which was done in Boston, I believe.
Yes.
It was.
Okay, DeSantis. Well, you know the whole controversy about Disneyland. Well, DeSantis is expected to control Disney District Governing Board. The governor, in his push to punish Disney, included a bill on Monday which had begun a special legislation to reconstruct the Randy Creek Improvement District, which is what,
Reedy Creek, I remember that.
yeah, and that's what
Disney is
this
called.
whole complex is called, of Disney. And the bill would leave the district's abilities intact. However, it would require the governor to appoint a 5-member oversight board. So it seems like he doesn't want to have to take it all away because he knows what that's going to do to the economy in that area. So he's just going to appoint a board which says, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do this. No, you can't do that.
The bill itself is something like 128 pages.
May
Yeah.
I just say something?
Yes.
The Joy of Gay Sex was first published in 1977. The original print run was 75,000 pages.
Wow.
Copies. Although
That would be a comprehensive book.
And an expanded edition was published with Edmund White.
Well, thank you.
Great pleasure.
And the Wyoming Senate classifies gender-affirming care as child abuse. So, and I'll do one more and then we'll move on to Ann.
Okay.
So DC Comics debut a new transgender non-binary superhero. The superhero will be called Circuit Breaker and is the latest example of DC Comics being LGBTQ inclusive. So, there you go, Ann.
All right. I have to start with what I find unpleasant coverage involving religion, and the Pope and the Anglican Presbyterian leaders who have traveled. They traveled to South Sudan to nudge them along on a peace process. And before they went, the Pope said that homosexuality. He said something very soft on homosexuality. So these 3 clerics had an airborne interview on their return from South Sudan. It was Pope Francis, backed by the ceremonial head of the Anglican Communion and top Presbyterian minister, and they called for gays to be welcomed by their churches, as the Pope again decried laws that criminalize homosexuality as unjust. And so South Sudan is one of the 67 countries that criminalizes homosexuality, 11 of them with the death penalty. LGBTQ advocates say even where such laws are not applied, they contribute to a climate of harassment, discrimination, and violence. So on their airborne press conference, Francis specifically didn't repeat that being homosexual is not a crime because he didn't perhaps want to antagonize his South Sudanese hosts who had originally rejected to his comments. In fact, this is Michael Maklua Lueth, South Sudan's information minister, said if Pope Francis, is coming here and he tells us that marriage of the same sex, homosexuality, is legal, we will say no. So anyway, they're all back on the plane. Francis referred to his January 24th comments to the AP and repeated that anti-homosexual laws are unjust. He also repeated the previous comments that parents should never throw their gay children out of the house. To condemn someone like this is a sin, he said. Criminalizing people with homosexual tendencies is an injustice. Remember homosexual tendencies, that canard from the 50s and earlier? People with homosexual tendencies are children of God. God loves them. God accompanies them, he added. So the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, is there too. And he recalled that LGBTQ rights were very much on the agenda of the Church of England. And as I reported last time, they decreed that they can issue a blessing to gay people, but not same-sex marriage. The Vatican...
So generous of them.
The Vatican forbids both gay marriage and blessings for same-sex unions. Welby told reporters the issue of criminalization had been taken up, and he went through all that business about you can have blessings, and friction has been simmering within the global Anglican Communion for many years over its 42 provinces. Sharp differences on whether to recognize same-sex marriage and ordain LGBTQ clergy. Now, a more interesting perspective comes from the Right Reverend Ian Greenshields, the Presbyterian moderator of the Church of Scotland, who also participated in this pilgrimage to South Sudan and the news conference. He offered the observation that there is nowhere in my reading of the four Gospels where I see Jesus turning anyone away. There is nowhere in the four Gospels where I see anything other than Jesus expressing love for whomever he meets. And as Christians, that is the only expression that we can possibly give to any human being in any circumstance. Now, not surprisingly, the Church of Scotland allows same-sex marriages. So a Catholic teaching holds that gay people must be treated with dignity and respect, but that homosexual acts are intrinsically disordered. So we have a little nuance.
Good news from Scotland again.
Again, the Scottish are leading the way, and
And they're snappy
And the
dressers.
Irish aren't that, are doing really well too, although not Northern Ireland, which is part of England, yes.
And I read a New York Times article about the possible Scottish secession, and they say probably not, but I'm kind of pulling for it. But let's see a picture now of retired Czech General Petr Pavel, who is 61, and he won the presidential election. And this is good news. He was running against a real right-wing person. He won with the pledge to keep the country firmly anchored in the West and bridge society's political differences. He's a retired general running for office for the first time. He won 58.3% of the vote. He ran against a billionaire ex-premier, Andrej Babis, who is a dominant but polarizing force in Czech politics and has been so for a decade.
That's good news.
Yeah, he values, Mr. Pavel values truth, dignity, respect, and humility. He's also fully backed continued support for Ukraine in its defense against Russia's invasion, and he's going to take office in March.
Did the other guy say it was rigged?
No, but he's angry. He supports adopting the euro, a topic that successive governments have kept on the back burner, and he supports same-sex marriage and other progressive policies. So good news for Czechoslovakia.
Excuse me.
Okay, now let's move to, let's stay in Europe and talk about progressive movement that's occurring. Europe generally is moving toward trans self-ID, even though there's controversy. From Spain to Germany, nations are debating gender self-declaration laws that LGBT groups say are key to trans rights. In Germany, under the current law, trans Germans have to go to court and provide 2 expert reports, usually from psychotherapists, to change their first name and legal gender on official documents, such as their insurance card, passport, and driver's license. For many trans people, the process is burdensome and intrusive, and it also can cost several thousand euros to complete. Proposed legislation put forward word in the German government coalition agreement would let trans people simply declare the gender change at a local registry office. Children aged 14 and over would also be able to do so with permission of their legal guardians. Germany is among a clutch of European countries, from the Netherlands to Spain, where lawmakers are debating self-declaration laws. Around the world, more than a dozen nations, including Malta, Ireland, Argentina, and New Zealand, already allow trans self-ID, according to a UN report, while Nepal and Pakistan use a similar process for people who identify with a third gender or use non-binary marker. But despite the growing acceptance of self-ID, the issues proving controversial in Europe, echoing fierce and often polarized debate about transgender rights in the UK and the US. In Spain, the Senate is set to give final approval to a self-ID bill that was passed by the lower house in December. If it becomes law, anyone from the age of 14 will be allowed to change gender by self-declaration. LGBTQ plus activists have celebrated the win, but criticized the Socialist Party's decision not to support gender-neutral markers on identity documents for people who identify as non-binary, neither male nor female. We won't give up. We will keep on fighting, said a non-binary activist in Madrid. In Germany, the government's LGBTQ rights commissioner said the self-determination bill should be passed before the end of the summer, but LGBT activists fear delays. These concerns should be allayed in the course of the legislative process, said a spokesperson for the Justice Ministry. And so then there's more back and forth. And as if by magic, the next story is that Finland now allows people to legally change gender by self-declaration. The government also eliminated a law requiring trans people to be sterilized before legally changing their gender. Finland's parliament passed a law making it easier for trans people to legally change their gender and eliminating the past policies requiring sterilization and psychiatric diagnosis. The law passed 113 to 69, so they can self-declare after a 30-day period of reflection. The new law says that you can't change back and forth for more than once during the year because they're afraid that military service is going to be involved, that somebody might change gender to avoid military service, which seems absolutely outlandish. But, the law will go into effect immediately, and it used to require trans individuals to show proof of sterilization and psychiatric evaluation before allowing them to officially change, as I said. Trans advocates long criticized this policy for stigmatizing trans people as mentally ill and unfit to raise kids. Amnesty International said the old law was in breach of the European Convention of Human Rights. So I have a picture now before you of Sanna Marin, who is Finland's prime minister, who was raised by two moms. She says the new bill represents a very important issue to me personally, as she sought to ensure its passage in Parliament. She made this comment at the Helsinki Pride Parade in February 2022, where she marched alongside tens of thousands of other LGBTQ people and allies. Even today, the structures of society put people into unequal positions, Marin said at the parade. For me, people have always been equal. It's not a matter of opinion. It's the foundation of everything. While Finland has legalized same-sex and marriage and LGBTQ plus anti-discrimination precautions, the country hasn't banned so-called conversion therapy, nor does it allow LGBTQ plus couples to have a child through surrogacy. The country allows men who have sex with men to donate blood, but only after a 4-month period of sexual abstinence, abstinence, so even the most progressive countries have a ways to go. But now let's turn.
We should probably move on, hon.
Okay,
Ann?
can I just do this one, show this one clip, or should we?
Okay, go ahead.
This is La Mencita from Italy. It's a fabulous film that's at the Sundance now. It hasn't been released yet, but when it is, I encourage you to see it. Let me tell you a little bit about it. It takes place in 1970s Rome, a time of great social and cultural change, full of grit and glamour. The young Borghetti family has just moved into one of the many freshly built apartment blocks in the city. The move is bittersweet. Despite the beautiful sweeping views of Rome from their top floor apartment, the family is not as close as they once were. Clara and Felice are no longer in love, but are unable to leave each other. One of those relationships. Clara finds refuge from her loneliness in the shelter of her special relationships with her 3 children. Clara is played by Penelope Cruz, by the way, and her performance has been lauded across the board. The oldest, Adriana, 11, is an unknown child in this neighborhood and deliberately presents as a boy to the neighborhood children, pushing the family's bond toward the breaking point. So let's take a look at La Mencita, a clip.
Strano. Di solito quando ti trucchi, o esci o hai pianto.
Ma perché ti sei mangiata tutte quelle ostie?
Mi devono fare un miracolo.
Che miracolo ti serve?
Che papà mi avete creata male. Io non sono Adriana. E tu non hai poteri per aggiustarmi. Io vengo da un'altra galassia. Come ti chiami? Andrea.
Adri pensa di essere figlia di un alieno nello spazio.
Ma tu non sei preoccupata?
A me non mi preoccupano le fantasie dei bambini. Mi preoccupano di più le fantasie degli adulti che pensano di essere ancora bambini.
Lo stupore della notte.
Sei andata oltre le canne? È pericoloso, sai? Soprattutto per te e per quell'amica tua.
Basta, smettetela! Siete voi che fate preoccupare mamma.
Ma ho detto di no. Ho detto di no.
Ha detto di no!
Quella ragazzina vuole essere un maschio. Tu non sei neanche capace di educarla, quella ragazzina.
Ma tu e papà vi volete bene?
Possiamo separarci.
Che separarci? Levati dalla testa questa cosa. Dove vai tu?
Non saprei ti rivedrei. Se guardandomi negli occhi sapessi.
Ma è più importante quello che abbiamo dentro o quello che abbiamo fuori?
Adri. Dammi un bacio, Adri.
Where is it playing, Ann? Is
It's
it
not
going to be in
released yet.
theaters?
It's Sundance.
But it's going to be.
It's going
Okay.
to be released.
And you're right, Penelope Cruz is getting incredible
Incredible.
reviews
I
for
know
her
it.
performance.
I can't wait to see it.
So, trivia. When you think of that rock and roll lyric, you ain't nothing but a hound dog,
Yeah.
there's probably one artist who comes to mind. What if I told you there was an LGBTQ plus blues singer who sang it first and sold 2 million copies of their rendition? They also,
And this is not common knowledge.
and they also were the original performer of Ball and Chain, which Janis Joplin
Right.
made famous.
Wow.
Who might that have been? So events, Rainbow Umbrella, you've got the Women's Distraction Group. I'm looking at your notes and you're talking about drag and camp and culture
Yes.
and what do we really know and think about this?
Very interesting.
Interesting, and I like the articles, the literature that's accompanying the discussion. And you've got a book discussion
Yes,
group going.
we do.
Same book?
What's the book? Yes, same book.
Yeah, you just
what
can't
is
remember
it?
the title.
An Unnecessary Woman.
Yes, that's
by
right.
Abin
Yeah.
Ahmadine.
And You have the drag bingo
No.
February 24th,
at the senior
No.
center.
drag bingo.
Drag bingo.
I haven't gotten any notices.
Sponsored by Rainbow Umbrella of Central Vermont, Momentum from the Pride Center, and the
Senior center.
MSAC,
Yes.
Montpelier Senior Center.
So it's going to be at the senior center at 7 or 6, was it? 6, I think.
And the bingo, I don't know.
Card, yeah.
Aficionado.
No, the facilitator
Yeah.
is going to be Emoji Nightmare.
Okay. Well, sort of in keeping with that, at Fox Market in East Montpelier on Friday, February 14th at 7 p.m., queer speed dating. They would really like you to go on to their website, Facebook, and register for this, and they said it's filling up fast. They're also bringing back drag karaoke. But unfortunately, their first one is February 10th, which is the day before this will air. But we're looking at their website and Facebook page for when it may be repeated. Vermont Office of Racial Equity and the Vermont Human Rights Commission commemorating Black History Month. And they're doing a 28-day series to highlight the successes, curiosities, and spirits of Black communities. And their presentations will include events, art, resources, facts, and literary excerpts. That should get Professor Charles. And you can go on to the State of Vermont Office of Racial Equity or Human Rights Commission to get details. Thursday, February 16th, starting at 6:30 p.m. at the Echo Center in Burlington, we might be recognizing the inauguration of Vermont Congresswoman Becca Ballant. And you can go on to Becca's website to RSVP to let them know you're coming. On Thursday, February 23rd, starting at 5 p.m. at Capitol Plaza, Victory Institute. This is
Another
the
thing we're thinking
training,
of going to.
outreach. They're doing a reception for Vermont's LGBTQ plus elected officials. We have gone above and beyond the expectations of both our legislators, Michael Pichek, State Treasurer, Becca being elected to the U.S. Congress, school boards, municipal government, states' attorneys. So they are recognizing the work that has been done here. And if you go on to the Victory Institute website and pre-register, it's a free event. So
That's right. I guess we have to pre-register.
Yes.
and when you go onto the site, they are going to ask you, do you want to donate and be a host or whatever, because of course there's a fundraising component
Right.
to it. But you don't have to donate
Good.
in order to attend.
Good.
So that should be interesting. Pride Center of Vermont, Sunday the 12th. So if you're watching this on Saturday night, get up, get to Burlington by 6. They're doing Mike Bensel's farewell party.
Yeah.
And it's going to be from 4 to 6 at the Pride Center itself. It'll be too late to RSVP, but they wanted a sense of how many people might be coming. Sunday, February 19th, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Red Wagon Plants, which is a greenhouse in Heinsberg. They're doing a queer crafternoon. Come into their greenhouse, and it's greenhouse number 3, and spend the day with other queer folk creating crafts. But
Why not?
I just thought it was a little something out of the ordinary. Why
Yeah.
not? And of course, on Thursday, the 16th, over at Lincoln's, it might be Linda's favorite, happy hour pop-up. Knock on the door, we'll see if we'll let you in. 2 things of note that are ongoing. Social Tinkering in Rutland, their Crystal Queer QA podcast. And this is where they're talking with members of the LGBTQ plus community about their experiences and about issues, you can access it on their website, Facebook page. One of them that they've recently posted is Micah's non-binary experience. What's it like to be non-binary in Vermont? So, and also keep in mind, sort of a similar vein, Out in the Open at a Brattleboro HB, their radio hour, where they talk with LGBTQ plus community members.
All right,
So-
let me add, Drag Bingo, Friday, February 24th, 6 to 8. Montpelier Senior Activity Center, we know where that is. Also with a pop-up vaccine clinic for COVID, flu, HPV-MX, and there's an email for you to sign up by 2/13, which
Right.
is. So we're all going to be there. Should be fun.
Now, they would like us to pre-register versus just showing up for the event?
Yes, apparently.
Apparently, but I think if you show up, it'll be fine because a lot of people aren't on social media. So
Okay.
I think if you come, you'll be fine.
Okay, so that was my events section.
If not, ask for Ann and tell them that she told you it was okay.
I was going to say, it's like going to a recovery group. I'm a friend of Ann's. Okay.
This is one of my favorite stories. A bisexual state senator in Nebraska has proposed that a measure be enacted prohibiting children from enrolling in Bible studies, attending church camps, or participating in other forms of religious indoctrination. She wants to, Megan Hunt, the first LGBT person elected to the legislature, presented the proposal as an amendment to a bill preventing minors from attending drag shows. So I think this is really, really interesting that, because her argument was, well, where do children really get molested? In church clubs, all that kind of stuff.
Church camps.
So, if you want to protect children, you might consider that.
I like her creativity in the bill to which she made it an amendment.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
A thriller, Knock at the Cabin film, is now showing. There is the second season of Harlem, and I want to show you a trailer from the movie Planet Sex. So, here we go.
My name is Cara. I was a teenager when I started modeling, but this is the first time I've spoken about my sex life. So let's talk about it. I'm going to travel the world to discover what makes each of us who we are. I love men, but I love women and everyone else. So, you come here often? I'm going to meet people like me and others very unlike me.
All of us are trying to figure out who we are.
I don't know who I am. Like, a lot of people don't know who they are. I'm pretty nervous to put my sexual desires out there at a women-only sex party.
I am married, but there's a part of me that needs more.
I'm going on a journey to discover what else there is.
Ladies, gentlemen, and those of us smart enough to have transcended gender.
I was born intersex.
Is it something you were quite scared of?
It's like a relief because it was just like, oh my God, community, people. And then at the same time, it was like, what the
When I was a little girl, I liked dressing up in boys' clothes.
Whoa. This is crazy.
I'm in the body of a man.
I'm so confused.
I wonder what my family would think.
It's nothing against them. They love me. It's just some people don't understand what that is.
We're on the right path.
Porn is made from this very male viewpoint, so I'm pitching my ideas to Erica Lust.
I want to change porn culture.
She's going to direct the porn film based on my fantasies.
Action! We deserve orgasms.
Am I brave enough to change the narrative and shed the shame? It's the bravest thing I've ever done. Can't believe I did it, to be honest. Growing up with a lot of shame, thinking, this isn't normal, this isn't human, but it's like, but it is. There's so much more to explore.
So that's pretty interesting.
Do you have any information?
I don't. I'm going to let people watch the trailer.
And then forage on their own.
Yeah. Then they're on their own. A disgusting thing I personally believe was Chappelle won a Grammy for his homophobic Netflix special.
Yeah. Closer, I think it was.
Yeah. 2 South Carolina men have been charged with a hate crime in connection with the murder of trans woman Pebbles Ladine in 2019. And a California cannabis entrepreneur and former mayor Robert Jacob pleaded no contest to 6 felony charges involving having sex with an underage boy he met on Grindr. I didn't think underage kids could go on Grindr, can they?
You can lie about your age. There's no validation process.
And we already talked about Stormy Daniels. And our friend Ann Northrup, host from Gay USA, was blessed by Reverend Billy. He made Ann a saint.
And what's the name of the church?
I can't remember the name of the church. What's the name? Church of something.
Uncontrollable Shopping or something?
Something like
I'll look
that.
it up.
And they do these things periodically where they go in subways and stores and it's like anti-commercialism. And Reverend Billy is in charge of this church, which Ann is now frantically trying to find. And so that was pretty fun. And Deborah Batts is the first out federal judge. And this story, now, whether you like Kathy Griffin or not, the story, but she went to the White House correspondence group
dinner
from the Blade.
Oh, the Washington Blade sent Kathy Griffin as a reporter?
Yeah. And she came in contact with the White House press and told them to suck her dick. This happened when the secretary, Hagan Gidley, tried to squeeze by the table she was sitting at. Griffin asked him how he slept at night, and he replied, just fine. And there was some back and forth, and he said, thank you, I sleep really well. And that's when things got really interesting. And that's when she started yelling, suck my dick. So, whether you like her or not, she was representing the Blade at the correspondence dinner.
I was going to say the Blade is the only LGBTQ plus newspaper that has a permanent seat at the White House press conferences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. If you don't know who she is, she's the woman that she was fired from CNN from doing the New Year's Eve program there.
With Bradley
But she was
Cooper.
the person who showed
Anderson
the picture
Cooper.
of Trump's bloody head in a platter, and her career was almost destroyed because of that. And when you think about what Republicans do, it's not that bad.
I can't find the name of that church. The Church of Endless Shopping or something.
Like that, yeah.
We'll have to look it up and tell you next time. It's really a hoot.
It's on to you.
Okay. Well, since you've been praising the Blade, I have some bad news about them, but I'll hold it. Now let's go to Asia, where the affirmation of trans people is continuing in Hong Kong. I'd like to show you a picture now of Henry Edward C., who, with a person only identified as Q, appealed to the court last month over the government's refusal to change the genders on their ID cards because of their decision not to have full sex assignment surgeries. Hong Kong's top court ruled Monday that full sex reassignment surgery should not be a prerequisite for transgender people to have their gender changed on their official identity cards. See, the gentleman whom pictured before you in Q are both transgender men who have had their breasts removed, received hormonal treatments, and lived their lives as males with professional support and guidance as well as psychiatric treatment. The judgment of the Court of Final Appeal will, of course, have a wide impact on the LGBTQ community because many transgender members consider having the full operation unnecessary and risky. The two went to court because existing government policies only allows transgender men to change their official gender if they have removed their uteruses and ovaries and constructed male genitalia. Only those who cannot undergo the surgical procedures due to medical reasons can be exempted.
Plus, it's really expensive besides.
Exactly. The government said the policy was disproportionate in its encroachment of the rights of the two to gender identity and physical integrity. They also said any administration issues that usually arise tend to pertain to transgender persons' outward appearance and not the appearance of their genital area, that leaving the gender on their identity card unamended produced a lot of confusion. Mr. Chi welcomed the ruling, saying many transgender people have been longing for a final victory for years. Now I have a male ID card. It will be a lot easier for me to access gender-segregated spaces, he said. I wouldn't be questioned and humiliated by being outed by my ID that's incongruent with who I am. Good news. Now, Linda gave me this story, and it's very informative, I think. It's about LGBTQ plus Afghans who risk safety by protesting U.S. government and publications that left us behind. If the Taliban discovers the protesters' identities, they could be arrested, tortured, and killed. A group of activists in the Afghanistan capital of Kabul held a virtual in-house protest criticizing the U.S. government and U.S. publications for abandoning them to a life of persecution and death under the Islamic extremist Taliban government. The protest, whose photos were disseminated on social media, showed people holding banners with critical messages. We are exhausted by the U.S. recklessness. Trump orchestrated the Taliban deal. Biden withdrew and left us behind. Stop punishing us, one banner said. We cannot live here. There is no love in Taliban-controlled Afghanistan, another sign read. We want to live, not fight to stay alive, read another. One of the protesters, a former state security worker named Kadam, said they wanted Western governments to assist and accept more LGBTQ plus Afghan refugees fleeing Taliban's persecution, something that's worsened since the group retook control of the country following the August 2021 withdrawal of U.S. military forces from the region. Two other signs said that three U.S. publications, the Daily Beast, the Washington Blade, and the New York Times, betray and suppress the voices of queer Afghans by not including the voices of the protest's organizing group and that of Nemat Sadat. And so I'd like to show you a picture now of Nemat Sadat. He's a human rights journalist and Afghan expatriate who fled the country after local Islamic clerics declared lethal fatwas against him following his public coming out as gay. He has compared the Taliban to Nazis. The Daily Beast and Washington Blade continue to shun Nemat Sadat, and activists from Benj Beshet Collective and Roshania in their coverage of LGBTQ plus people in Afghanistan. A tweet published by both groups read, "Let's hope they start interviewing the voices who are authentic to the movement."
Wow.
The protest was organized by two groups, the Beshate Collective, a queer and trans group that provides mental health, counseling, shelter, and evacuation of LGBTQ youth, and Roshanaya, a nonprofit for locating persecuted Afghan queers. The U.S. has shown no leadership or courage to stick up for universal human rights for LGBTQI plus Afghans. A Twitter message posted by both groups declared, "We hope the U.S. will change course and provide asylum protection for members of the community." Immediately following the protest, several protesters relocated to another Muslim country that still criminalizes same-sex activity, but is safer than Afghanistan. Sadat told the publication, "The facts are as clear as day. The U.S. did nothing for LGBTQI plus Afghans during the 20 years of U.S. occupation in Afghanistan, and countries to turn a blind eye to the savagery committed by the Taliban." He also praised protesters for holding their demonstration under the noses of the Taliban. "Unless the U.S. reverses course and proactively works with the Beshite Collective and Roshania," he added, "we will witness the total annihilation of LGBTQ plus community in Afghanistan."
Wow.
Yeah. In October 2021, the Taliban murdered Hamid Saburi, a gay 22-year-old medical student, and sent a video of his death to his family. Saburi was tortured for 3 days before being shot in the back of the head. His partner had previously been raped, beaten, and tortured with electric shocks. Saburi's family left the country after his murder. In December, Taliban enforcers publicly whipped Afghan men accused of gay sex. 10 organizations, including Rainbow Railroad, asked the Biden administration to adopt a 10-point plan to help relocate queer and transgender Afghan people to the U.S. In August, Beshate, which is the Persian word for heaven, held a similar protest in Islamabad, the capital of Pakistan. So I know that they're doing the right thing because there's no other chance, said Mr. Samat of the protesters. This is the moment to speak up for themselves and the rest of the community, for the world to listen, for the world to see that we're here, we're fighting for our brothers and sisters to have a chance to live. Sobering news.
Did it say why people aren't posting their cries for help?
Because they're afraid. Because,
like the Blade and
yeah,
the New York Times are afraid of what?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's probably pressure from the Biden. I mean, there's sort of the Biden administration.
Because they're in D.C., the Blade?
Well, the Biden administration in general hasn't really responded part to this, and maybe there's political.
I would hope
pressure.
that they would be at least, the New York Times and the Washington Blade would be. I mean, they report on much more. It just seems odd to me.
Yeah. Well, the New York Times has feet of clay.
Yeah.
But let's turn to Japan now, if we may, while we're still in Asia. This is sort of amusing, I found. Japan's prime minister, his aide is leaving over LGBTQ remarks. A senior aide to Japan's prime minister is being dismissed after making discriminatory remarks about LGBTQ people. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida told reporters Saturday that Masayoshi Arai, a secretary in his office, was being dismissed after Arai recently told Japanese media he did not like seeing LGBTQ people. He had retracted his comments and apologized on Friday. Kishida said the remarks run counter to the administration's position on promoting diversity. Taking strong action is inevitable, he said. without providing further details, meaning that Arai may leave voluntarily. His remarks prompted an outburst of protest and were the latest in a string of gaffes by Japanese officials that have landed them in trouble. Japan, as we know, and I keep repeating, is the only group of seven countries that does not recognize same-sex marriage, but the movement toward recognition has been growing. Kishida's administration has been hit by several scandals recently, and its popularity is shaky. Various Japanese officials have resigned over years over the comments they've made. A justice minister stepped down last year after joking about capital punishment. In 2021, Yoshida Mori resigned as head of the Tokyo Olympic Organizing Committee after saying women talk too much. A minister in charge of cybersecurity, who acknowledged she had hardly ever used a computer, resigned in 2019. So they really are running their mouths over in Japan. Let's go to South America for a quick note. Suriname Constitution Court rejects marriage equality. They say that this court says that the man-woman definition of marriage in the Civil Code does not violate the Constitution. And so these two men were denied having their marriage in Argentina recognized. And it says, so the court said it didn't violate the Constitution or international treaties, which is, of course, entirely false. Suriname is a signatory to the American Convention on Human Rights and is bound to bring in marriage equality by the Inter-American Court of Human Rights marriage equality ruling. So that's a
And I think that's about you, huh? That's it?
Okay, you want to do, can I just do my headlines?
Okay, but we have to leave time for trivia and for Keith to finish up his talking points.
Okay, I have two kind of bad stories from Africa. One involves Egyptian police hunting LGBTQ people on dating apps. That has been demonstrated by the BBC, and now I have to show you a picture of a rainbow tower that's to be removed from a Ugandan park after parents claimed it was satanic. They put this tower up to spice up the neighborhood, and then Emmanuel Mugabe from the National Parents Association of Uganda told a local publication that the rainbow colors were satanic and signaled an invasion of homosexuality through manipulation of children's minds. So the rainbow tower has been taken down.
Okay, Keith, we'll move on to you now.
Okay, so really quickly, the Becca Watch. Becca was assigned to the House Oversight and Accountability Committee.
Nice.
Anybody who knows the legislative process, this is a huge assignment. This is a select committee. This is not a standing committee. What were you going to say?
Yeah, Jamie Raskin is the head. And are you going to tell the viewers what she said when she was asked to identify herself in 3 words?
Scrappy little dyke.
Isn't that fabulous?
So the other story with Becca right now is the FTX donations, the currency scandal, which apparently is blowing up even larger. The investors, contributors to the currency are saying, we want our money back. And a lot of that money got funneled through to political contributions. So reaching out to Natalie Silver, who is Becca's chief of staff, they're aware of the monies, they're aware of the effort to try and recoup on behalf of the donors or the investors. And they said they're waiting to get really clear instructions about how they can ensure the money goes back to the investor donor versus just getting caught up in sort of the organizational funding. But they put all of the money aside in a special account. So when a decision is made, they're ready to do it, or they're going to donate it to charities. So
good.
The big story for the LGBTQ plus community is the unexpected resignation of Representative Kate Donnelly.
I'm so glad you're covering that.
And, well, it really pained me. Kate was the person who is one of the lead sponsors on the protected healthcare bill that the House is currently debating and hopefully going to vote out this week. Second term, she looked to be that rising star. And she does a blog in the News and Citizen, which is a local paper. And she put out to her constituents first, a great sense of ethic, that she needed to resign, that the work became an impossible juggling act. I have wanted so badly to find that elusive sweet spot that allows me to continue to do this work that I love without sacrificing my mental health and the health of my marriage and family. I have finally come to the painful conclusion that such a balance simply does not exist. And when she was talking about part of her comment was, they get paid $11,000 for a part-time job that is actually a full-time job.
Right.
Your constituents are always reaching out to you. There is always something to which you need to respond. But then she went on to share what I think we keep forgetting, that this Vermont attempts to be, at least on the surface, a more inclusive state. She made this comment: homophobia from the political right was among the brutal, difficult pressure of her job. In the time that I've served, over 2 years, I have been directly targeted by the Vermont GOP. I've had my face plastered over social media with the word extremism written under it. It's been shared on social media with a hashtag groomer, essentially meaning that because I support the care of queer and trans youth, I am somehow a child abuser. These things place my life at risk. And more importantly, it puts her family at risk. And she said that when she has talked with other LGBTQ+, the Rainbow Caucus, BIPOC members of the legislature, that they have similar experiences to share. So there are, in fact, 2 bills that have been introduced, one in the Senate and there's about to be one in the House, to deal with some of the issues that she has brought up, such as there's no health care, there is no child care, the compensation. Well, the compensation does not truly cover the job that you're being asked to do. Yes, you're paying me for my actual time in the legislature, but my responsibility to my constituents extends beyond that. Yeah, quickly, so I can do our trivia.
Quickly, this means that only people with money or rich spouses can take these jobs, and that is not right. So,
well, that's why there are the 2 bills looking at how can we address this and what can we do that does meaningful change. So that
trivia,
that rock and roll, you ain't nothing but a hound dog, may have been Big Mama Thornton, who was blues singer, dressed as a man during their performance, made no excuses, took no prisoners, and as she said, I was a badass.
And she sold how many copies?
She sold 2 million copies.
Wow. Good for her.
Exactly.
Well, before we, in the 15 seconds we have left, I want to recommend viewers watch Keith's interview last time with Emma Mulvaney-Stanek.
She was great.
If you're discouraged by this story, listen to her interview because it really cheered me up. It was very energizing, and she's part of a smart, active caucus
that's who we are hoping to get on as a group.
Yes.
To talk.
And on that note, remember to resist.
Resist.